لأن ضيفتي دلوقتي خبيرة عالمية شهيرة اختارت التجربة المصرية في تطوير التعليم ضمن أفضل تجارب التطوير المبدعة في العالم. في تقرير نشرته في اليونسكو خبيرة شافت التجربة دي وكانت شاهدة على مراحل كتيرة جدا فيها. خلونا نروح لشيكاغو وتحديدا جامعة إلينوي عشان نسأل الدكتورة ليندا هيريرا أستاذ سياسات التعليم بجامعة إلينوي يا ترى شايفيننا إزاي؟ Dr. Linda Herreri, we're very pleased to welcome you in our show. The show is Group الماميز or Mommy's Group. It's on مدرستنا channel. And I know that you are as a professor in the education and innovation of education and education policy. I know that you may want to tell us something about مدرستنا channel.
Thank you, Yasmeen. It's so good to be here. So what I'd like to say about the channel is I've been following it from the very beginning. So this was part of the work I was doing in researching and documenting Education 2.0.
Okay.
And I've seen really enormous innovation and change and development and evolution of the channel. So I want to say mabruk to the production team at Mudrasitna.
Yeah.
It's been really a pleasure to follow it since its inception to now.
Mm-hmm. And you know, مدرستنا channel was originally made because of the coronavirus and how this hindered a lot of children to go to their schools and follow their lessons. So we have made, and the producer unit, our production unit has made a lot of efforts to produce a lot of programs that has all the lessons that children in all grade levels need to know and to learn in their school year. So it was enormous challenge, by the way. And I'd like to know, how did you see this in, if you want to compare it between what was going on in the world and what happened really in Egypt?
You're talking about during the pandemic, when the pandemic began? You know, Egypt was very fast to respond to the pandemic and to find solutions, like on the fly. And I think it was faster than most places that I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. So Mudrasitna was one of the solutions that it had. So it had the digital solutions and then it had the analog solutions.
Yes.
And within months, it started to air television programs. It had developed a learning management system through the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. And there are other digital innovations. So it was extremely fast in terms of the world response.
Yes.
To find solutions to deal with the closures of the schools. Mm-hmm. So that was something really interesting and impressive to watch.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to ask you, there is a big question that we all have been asking because of what happened when the innovation started in Egypt. Can social circumstances and conditions call for the innovation of the education system? Or should it be vice versa, that the innovation of education causes the changes in the society's perceptions, maybe?
Yeah, no, this is such a critical question that doesn't have an easy answer, obviously. But we can say that when the pandemic happened in March of 2020, we saw an acceleration of a lot of trends that were already in place. Mm-hmm. So there was like the beginning of some digitization happening, but that accelerated extremely fast.
Yes.
There are
but it
also
wasn't a
some
success
school,
in 2020, by the way.
Excuse me?
It wasn't a success in 2020, by the way. In all over the world, the internet or online learning was not a success. Everyone was shocked by this new experience.
So what I mean by the pandemic was an accelerant. We saw, for instance, in higher education, it was a booming field, the distance learning. Mm-hmm. And it was, picking up at a very fast pace, but it wasn't something that was happening in K-12, kindergarten through grade 12.
Yes.
So that was where we saw the innovation. To mixed results, and I know we're going to talk about that. That was quite a shock to families and to the system, to the economy, to many things.
Yes.
But so that the pandemic, it allowed for a real acceleration of something that may have happened in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years. It had to happen in 6 months.
Yes.
Or in the case of Egypt,
the challenge.
Yeah. So sometimes change happens due to circumstances, but it tends to be when it's formal change. It's an acceleration of something that's already being experimented with.
Yeah.
But then you ask the question, the other side of the question is should it be vice versa, that the innovation causes change in society, and both things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, the introduction of tablets in Egyptian education for secondary students, it started with year 10. I think that led to all kinds of changes in studying and practices and lessons and private lessons and learning and understanding. So the technology itself had a very direct effect on how students were interacting with the material and learning, thinking about exams, all these things. So it happens in both ways.
Yes, you know,
I mean, it's impossible to
Yes, please.
Sorry. So anytime you inject any new tools or technologies in society, there's going to be a lot of unexpected consequences of that. It's impossible to know where that's going to lead, but it will lead to changes.
Yes, sure. But you know, we started the innovation in 2018, actually, which was before coronavirus. And maybe, coronavirus is here with the innovation at the same time. Maybe this was the biggest challenge, because it's difficult now for parents, maybe for students, for teachers, for everyone, that they have to go on the same line, innovation and coronavirus. So we now see that teachers and parents, maybe more than students, maybe they need to be prepared for this.
They need to be prepared for the change, that the policy change, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a different question.
Yeah.
How to bring the parents and teachers on board to this big visionary change in education.
Yes.
So that's a question.
Yes. We see that. We can see that it's difficult now. Parents and teachers are not on the same speed as maybe students, and as the policy that should be implemented now. And maybe that was why I was asking you the previous question. Is it the society that asks for the innovation, or the innovation that will change the society eventually? Now we can see that the society needs maybe some changes, because they may be afraid of this innovation. They may be afraid of the new system that they don't know anything about.
Yeah, I do think there is a lot of hesitation or fear that comes with anything new. And this Education 2.0, which, as you correctly state, started in 2018 with grades KG, KG1, and grade 1. And then it has progressed to year 4 this year. But this has been a top-down vision and a top-down policy change. And there have been very skilled people involved in conceptualizing this and creating the books and the whole vision for it. But it does take time, as you know, to get to the ground. And it needs the participation and active involvement of not only students, but teachers, school communities, school leaders, families. And this is where I guess the challenging point is, how to get everyone on board and to convince them, as the minister, Dr. Tariq Shawty, has been trying to do. But it's going to need, I think, a much bigger effort that involves television and media and all kinds of things. About the benefits of this. And probably people will be convinced when they see the benefits. Right now, it's been 4 years. So it's in education, it takes a cycle of students who started it and grow through it to see the real benefits.
Yes, so the kids that were in KG1 in 2018, when they are seniors, that's when, or when they finish and graduate from schools, this is when we can see the outcome of this new system.
And we hope we're going to see excellent outcomes. And it's, you know, when you work in education, there's always some risk involved, because even what, you know, you have these fantastic ideas and you have an infrastructure, but to get from the vision to the change on the individual and societal level, there's a lot that goes into that, and it's a tricky process. It's a complicated process.
Yeah. If we go back to the online learning, is it possible that the world will implement the online learning or distance learning in the near future? And would it ever be a better option for the coming generations to get education through distance learning rather than going to schools? Is it a better option?
So, I mean, this is a question that's coming out a lot, especially since we've had this big global experiment with COVID. And what we've learned so far is that there has been a lot of hardship and loss because of the total online learning. I don't know if you're aware, 2 days ago, UNICEF came up with a report about, looking globally at what's happening. And they write, and I quote, "The scale of education loss is nearly insurmountable since, the online learning with COVID-19.
Yes, 1.5 billion children around the world did not have the access to education because of Corona.
Yes, and not only that, so distance learning is causing all kinds of other supplementary problems. For instance, we see not only do children, and here we have to be specific, like children who are like university students, children, a K through 9, let's say.
Yes.
So we're seeing not only learning losses in terms of like cognitive skills, maths and reading, but we're seeing a lot of social, emotional, mental health issues because of the lack of community and routine and isolation.
Yes.
And another thing, your listener, negative impact on households, because especially mothers, they have too much
They were suffering
pressure.
Yes,
to be the teachers, to be the caregivers, to run households, and professional women or women with work outside of the home also have to leave children or have to give up their work. So we're seeing economic costs, we're seeing psychosocial costs, we're seeing children with isolation, anxiety, depression. So to answer your question, no, I don't think distance learning is going to be a solution as a full solution. Some kind of
I'm asking you this question because we may read some articles that are talking about this, and maybe this is a good solution, or maybe this is the future system for learning, and moms are worried of these things. Mothers do not accept to go through this suffering again, and maybe this is a big fear for them. And maybe this takes me to another question for another style or system in learning, the hybrid learning system. People are talking about it as a good solution to challenges maybe like the big class size or the shortage in number of teachers. So is the hybrid education system a good alternative to the regular education in schools?
So I guess the hybrid system is an alternative. I think we all prefer something. We all prefer good classes with good resources, but we can't get that, especially now. So it's an alternative. It's much better than putting everything online and closing down schools and just having, online resources. So I do think there can be a way, and I think Egypt has been really a leader in this, in experimenting with the best ways to manage hybrid learning. So hybrid learning, the hybrid system is not ideal, but there can be creative, innovative ways to make it kind of more beneficial for families and for children. For example, one thing that happened during the pandemic was families would organize themselves in pods or groups. So you might have 5 households or 10 households that would be a pod. And all of the children would go to one of those households on the days that they didn't go to school because of this staggered or blended learning system. So that the burden is not just on sharing of that time that the children aren't in school. You have different mothers especially would take the responsibility for a number of children, and that would rotate. So there are these types of local solutions, But the solution is definitely not to the mothers, the professionals, and everything at once. It's too much.
Nothing is better than children going to schools and have face-to-face education with the teachers.
Of course, that's the ideal. We definitely want students in schools. It's good for them socially, intellectually, cognitively, in terms of citizenship building. That's better for the children. And our societies are organized to have children in school. We have not yet reorganized the societies, to not have schools.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Now that we're having the innovative system, what are the strength points you see in the system 2.0, and what are the points of weakness you see also?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me say that I have been studying the history of education in Egypt, and this is really something innovative. It's something important, and I think it's a great addition to the long history of educational innovation in Egypt. To be multidisciplinary, we bring issues together. It's trying to bring activity-based learning, so to get kids away from the desks and memorizing. And I'll say there is some value to memorizing, but that shouldn't be the only basis on which children learn. So it's much more based on experiential learning, activity-based learning, finding the connections between different fields. Mm-hmm. So in theory, it's a very innovative and timely. I mean, this is a system whose time has come.
Yes.
I think if the Ministry of Education hadn't done this, the children now starting the system just wouldn't have a chance. The education system would have been so dated.
Yes, it was so outdated.
It would have really. But then you asked, what are some of the drawbacks of the new system? Mm-hmm. And we've talked about it. Some of the drawbacks are it's still very much top down, and I think especially teachers have not yet been fully enculturated into Education 2.0. There's a lot to do, because Education 2.0 isn't only about learning, it's also about culture.
Yes.
It's also about changing an approach to education and learning. And that the society has to do that. It can't just happen through some policies or curricula. That's a longer, more difficult journey.
Yes. Is it common that this happens in any educational system that's being innovated in any other country? Is it common that people do not interact or accept it really easily?
I think innovation, people are hesitant to change. I think that's human nature.
Yeah.
So when something as different as 2.0 enters into an education system, yes, I think there's going to be resistance, and I think that's absolutely natural.
Yes.
So the question is how to bring the society on board. And I know that you at Mudressitna are trying to do it through television.
Yeah.
Dr. Tariq tries to do it through press conferences. There's a lot of public information, but it ultimately, I think it's the public through things like WhatsApp and word of mouth are going to be convincing each other that, don't worry, this is a better system. I've seen a result, but we do need to see some results before people are really convinced.
Yes. Now that you've seen the curriculum, and maybe we can compare between it and between the other curriculums, can we say that it's more like the American system or more like the British system, or it's not like any of these?
The 2.0?
Yes.
In the US, it's a very decentralized system.
Yeah.
So there's not one curriculum, and there's different approaches in different states and districts. But we can say that this curriculum is definitely more to what we can say international standards.
Okay.
It is, Discovery, National Geographic, Nahdat Masr in Egypt have been doing the textbooks in consultation with the Egyptian Curriculum Center. So what I like about this curriculum, it's both kind of up to international standards, but it's tailored to Egyptian schools and Egyptian society through the oversight of the curriculum center, the CCIMD. So it has elements of like the best of international curriculum. We can say in the English-speaking world, it's been Egyptianized, and I think it's a very good balance, a very high-quality balance to fit the Egyptian environment.
It's a high balance. It's a very good balance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I know that you have an opinion also about the EKB. How can you evaluate the experience of EKB? How do you want to tell us, we Egyptians, how do we get the most out of it?
You know, the EKB, or the Egyptian Knowledge Bank, is a phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
I mean, it's amazing. I actually couldn't, you know, I met Dr. Tarek. He was a professor here in Illinois, and I met him as he was in conversations with people in Chicago about the EKB, and I didn't quite believe what he was saying it would be. It just seemed too good to be true. But when I came to Egypt and you know, it was live, and I had an account, and I was looking at it, I couldn't believe that this amount of resources was available to everyone in the country. I mean, it's an immense public library that I just don't think it exists in this form anywhere else.
Yeah. Maybe the biggest library in the world.
It's a massive online resource library and now a learning management system. So my university has, I think, the second or third best library, supposedly in the US. But when I was in Egypt, I could find everything there I could find here. Yes. I mean, it had all of the similar databases for academic work. So for university students, the EKB it's a treasure.
Yes, it has all the data and research papers and everything a researcher may need.
Everything. And now it's making a big effort to have not only resources in English, but in French and in Arabic.
Yeah.
And so I think this has started to really increase the quality and productivity of Egyptian and Arab researchers. But if we look at the numbers, you know, there are 3.4 million students in higher education, and I think 23 million students in K-12. And the users of the EKB are not high enough, given those numbers. I don't have the latest statistics, but I think the EKB is not appreciated yet in Egypt, and I'm not sure why. I think researchers are using it, but not of the numbers that we would expect. But it's one of the most exciting innovations, honestly, I've seen in an education system anywhere. But I don't think it's being properly appreciated or utilized yet.
Maybe it needs more time to be well known and appreciated, and maybe people need to understand and know more about what is the content in this EKB.
I mean, people just need to get an account. It's free. This is incredible. And just start exploring. Type in any topic you're interested in, and you're going to get quality, you know, peer-reviewed, curated research in that topic.
Yes.
So for any student or from high school on, in terms of, you know, research, it's an amazing resource.
Yes.
And I know it's growing also in a K-12 area too, with a lot of resources there.
Yes. And what are you looking forward to see in the Egyptian education in the future?
You know, I think Egypt has, with 2.0 and the innovations on the digital front, it's really becoming a leader for Africa and the Middle East, so the Arab world and the African continent. And I really see Egypt as being a testing ground for education futures. So Egypt has a history of leading innovation in education in the region, and I really see that it's going in that direction. So I'd like to see with the EKB, with the 2.0, with experiments in digital platforms, with television, I'd like to see these influence and spread further around the region I think this is where I see Egypt's great strength right now.
Yes, inshallah. We hope the best for
Inshallah.
everyone and for you too, Dr. Linda. We're very pleased to host you in our show. And you are now you are a participant in our group, the Mommies group. And I'd like to hear something from you. You want to tell the mommies now in our group. What do you want to tell us? What do you like to advise us, maybe?
No, first I'll say it's a great pleasure and privilege to be part of the Mommies group.
Oh, thank you.
I was a mommy. I was a mommy in Egypt, and I raised my children in Egypt, and I was very much, always involved in education issues there.
Yes, a true mother.
I guess what I want to say is this moment is a challenge for everyone, and I completely understand all of the burdens put on mothers, especially with schools closing. Yes. And I just hope that they can see that the pandemic is out of everyone's hands. I mean, everyone is doing their best to try to find a solution. But that once hopefully things get back to some kind of, I don't even want to say normal right now, but things get back to, we learn from our experiences that the mothers are going to be the most important support for a better education system, for raising society, not only our individual children, but raising up the whole of Egyptian society. And a lot of this is on the backs of the fantastic Egyptian women and mommies who are there. So I just want to wish you really all the best. Keep it up and appreciate, all of the sacrifices and hard work I know mommies have made in this extremely difficult, challenging time. Yes,
of course. We thank you so much, Dr. Linda, for being with us in the show. We thank you for your support for the mothers and support for the whole innovation of the system, the Egyptian system. And we hope to see you soon in Egypt.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Linda. See you soon.
Okay. مع السلامة.
Bye bye. مع السلامة.